Under new proposals now being considered by government, couples in marriage breakdown situations could be forced to engage in mandatory counselling before seeking the intervention of the courts. The Irish Independent today reports that the new reforms for Ireland's divorce and separation system were the brainchild of the former Justice Minister Alan Shatter, but they're now being considered by his successor Francis Fitzgerald. With this in mind, our reporter Della Kilroy has today been taking a look at how the divorce system currently works in Ireland.
Well, first of all, in order to obtain a divorce in Ireland, you don't have to have a legal separation in place. You can actually just be physically separated. However, having said that, they have to be 4 years separated if they're living under the same roof or if they're not. So that's the biggest hurdle to get over.
Josepha Madigan, solicitor and family law expert on the divorce process in Ireland.
It's an extremely acrimonious adversarial system that we have here in Ireland, and unfortunately the way the legislation works, the Divorce Act, and the way the court system is, there's no real way of trying to make that any less acrimonious for people. And it's sort of a consent. You have to go into court, by the way, to get a divorce in Ireland, so there's no way around that, even if it is on consent. And probably cheapest one, if there's such a word, when you're talking about divorce, you're probably talking about about 10 grand anyway, plus VAT, and then you might have council's fees. Mediation costs are significantly less. You're talking of a saving of about 60%, in my view.
We know that the number of divorced people in Ireland has increased by 150% in the last 10 years. What are you seeing in terms of demand on the court services?
The majority of divorces in Ireland, the application will be grounded in the circuit court, and there are only 3 courts. There was definitely a lesser amount through the recession because people again were stuck with negative equity and stuck under the same roof and couldn't simply afford to divorce or separation. But we're now seeing that escalate again. Really, we need to totally overhaul and reform all of the areas in relation to family law, and I think the new Children Family Relationship Bill that is coming in, hopefully, and the new Mediation Bill will help with all of these things. But I really think court should be the last resort.
In both separation and divorce, there are already provisions requiring solicitors to inform their clients of alternatives to judicial proceedings. The Irish Independent today reports that divorcing couples could be forced to take part in mandatory counselling and mediation as part of proposals for a radical overhaul of the family law system currently being considered by the government. President of the Mediators Institute is Jerry Rooney.
So separating couples under family legislation have to be advised of the process of mediation, and they have to consider it. Our view, I suppose, in the Mediators Institute of Ireland is that that's very much a tick box exercise, and we're not entirely sure that all solicitors, or some certainly do, would be encouraging parties to actually consider mediation rather than just having it as certified as advising their clients of mediation.
Would many couples choose mediation or couples counselling as a way of speeding up the process?
It does speed up the process. Our statistics would tell us that people who enter a mediation process, it is less adversarial because the parties themselves would be making decisions in relation to their future lives.
Under new reform proposals being considered by Francis Fitzgerald, couples could be asked to do mandatory counselling. Is this a good idea?
The mediation process itself is a voluntary process, so the Mediators Institute of Ireland would not be happy to make the mediation process mandatory, but we'd strongly endorse and encourage it mandatory for parties to meet a mediator. Recently conducted a survey amongst our members in the Mediators Institute of Ireland, and we're finding that 79% of cases that go to mediation are settled.
What are the risks in mandatory counselling?
To force the parties in where there's no relationship, it could in fact be more damaging. I think you might be taking away people's constitutional rights as well. I mean, they have a right to have their case brought through the courts if that's where they want to go. It's against the principles of mediation, and we know where parties are required to formally attend a process, there's less success rate. And our comparison there would be to likes of conciliation and arbitration, which wouldn't have a high success rate as mediation has. And that clearly tells us therefore that if you're forcing parties into a room, you're less likely to have a success.
Figures show that the marital breakup rate in Ireland rose from 8.7% in 2006 to 9.7% in 2011 and 12. That's over 87,000 people since divorce was introduced in 1996, increasing the demand on legal services. Nolene Blackwell, director of the Free Legal Advice Centre, wants to see legal reform to ensure people have speedy access to both mediation and the court services.
there are big delays, both in the court system and specifically where poor people are going to family law courts. For an actual solicitor to take your case to court if you need it, if you're poor, you can be waiting for over a year in some places.
What are the main issues you hear from your clients on the impact of these kind of delays?
The main impact is on family incapacity to deal with issues. So, for instance, if you have a couple who is already in trouble and they have to wait 6 months or 12 months or 18 months for a resolution, relationships deteriorate. It impacts on their children. Mediation can facilitate resolutions by having an objective third party out there, but it can't be forced. However, you could force, and certainly it was on the cards, force people to go along and talk to a mediator once to get information about what mediation could do for a family that's in trouble. Just make sure that there are enough people available to families in trouble to give them the mediation and the legal services that they need.
Della Kilroy was reporting for us there now after the break. The Prime Minister has just become President. Erdogan rules Turkey.